such skilled, unskilled, good, bad. Migration is migration. So I'm just asking, are you for migration or against migration?
Yes, sir, I'm for migration.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
We would now hear from the person supporting the idea from team number 6.
Good morning. Today I am going to speak for the motion. New economic policy for the first time was introduced by Vladimir Lenin in the Soviet Russia and called it state capitalism. It was then itself the more capitalism oriented economic policy. Let me give you another example of Malaysian new economic policy formed after 1969 Malaysian riot. As this was the result of a racial riot, the policy mainly concentrated on enhancing the economic status of Malayas who were then considered as economically weaker section. But it had many backdrops. Like it gave economic advantage to some rich Bhumiputras, ironically they were considered as economically weaker section of society based on their caste. This was due to the quota system in the policy which didn't help the poor but became institutionalized system for some large ethnic communities of Malaysia. Now, can we consider this as socially equitable? Coming to the Indian context, new economic policy in India came after 1990 and 1991 economic crisis. When India went to the financial help to the World Bank and IMF, they were made to agree on certain reforms. But what happened? We got an economic crisis again in 2008. The main outcome of this, what happened? Our currency value has devaluated. According to the RBI, currency value in 1990 was $1 is equal to 18 rupees, whereas now $1 is equal to 63.79 rupees. Can we consider as economically viable? If we talk about the economically robust cities in Taiwan, the new economic policy resulted in cleaning of forests, industrial development, trees, farms and soil and water have been polluted by other pesticides. 19,000 factories dumped their waste into the air and waterways. Hence, I say that aggressive growth figures cannot be taken to be sole or even the main indicators of development for the socially and economically diverse countries. New economic policies thus are neither sustainable or nor inclusive. Thank you.
We will now have the person speaking against the motion.
Hello. Good evening, everybody. India was one of the country which has evolved from colonial period to a third largest economy. This is not because of our independence. It was because of our policies changes. After independence, we wanted to establish more of the capital intensive industries. That's why we restricted FDI because we wanted to develop our own technologies on industries. So Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru has proposed such policies which were for the indigenous industries that were supported of. But during 80s, our economy was going slow, and it was at that time our economy was going to choke them due to the economic crisis. And when we tried to approach the World Bank for financial support, they asked us for some reforms, and to meet that criteria, we introduced the new economic policy, which was based on LPG, liberalization, privatization, and globalization. And it has done its job well. Prime Minister Manmohan Singh had once told, no one can stop an idea whose time has come. And at that time, that was the idea which need to be implemented. And it was due to this, we have been able to ensure rapid development, because our GDP grew from 2 million to 50 million during that period, 90 to 1995. Our foreign reserve was in negative, and we increased up to 50 500 million after the reform. This reform brought a large scale development in different sectors like housing, infrastructure and different sectors.
Okay. So my question to the person speaking against the motion is this. You talked about Jawaharlal Nehru and you talked about Prime Minister Manmohan Singh. Can you just tell me what was the economic policy mantra of Jawaharlal Nehru? Because you talked about him
Yes.
and his policy.
Yes.
So if you understood him correctly, can you explain what was his economic policy mantra?
His policy mantra was to develop core industries indigenously, to make capital intensive industries in their own country. That's why he invested heavily in infrastructure like construction dam, construction of highways, which will incentivize the development of other related industries, because when we have the basic core infrastructure, capital intensive facilities, if we have the system of manufacturing machines which can produce computers, only then we can develop the secondary sectors like information technology and other. That's why he invested in those sectors.
Have you ever heard the term mixed economy?
Yes, sir.
What is meant by mixed economy?
Mixed economy is a combination of socialism and capitalism, because in this sector the capital, the basic of the capital is that the core industries should be in the hand of the government, and socialism is based on the welfare of the public. When we combined both, we introduced that core industries will be in the hand of the government, like defense industries, those industries which will be based on the natural resources, harvesting of natural resources, and we privatize those public sector enterprises which were in losses or which were not making profit.
You discussed, apart from India, a couple of other country examples as well. My question is not about India, because since you're asking, you talked about the Malaysian example, right? About the EWS, because belonging to a particular category. But tell me, apart from that, the new economic policy in Malaysia has also changed the supply of housing in cities. Are you aware of that? Are you aware of case studies? Or the example you quoted, is this the only fallout of the new economic policy? Or has there been any other interventions that Malaysia has done after the new, their so-called, I would not say liberalization, but implementation of around the same time that you're talking about in the urban housing sector?
Ma'am, although there may be some developments in housing sector and all, but the main focus
No, are
was...
there any significant that you know of?
Yes, ma'am. The education was also one of the drawback, that they have given a quota system in education also for the kind of this caste, this Malyas and Bhumiputras. What happened is the quota system was till the matriculation, and then further they have dropped the quota system. So what happened is that these Malyas and Bhumiputras were only restricted to this the education till matriculation. So these policies which with quota system and the other was not satisfied. They were not so much skilled because of these policies.
Now you're contradicting. Because
No,
if you've restricted them to matriculation, I think it's good. After that, it's equal opportunity. You allow them to get the basic education, and then it's equal opportunity to all. Whereas in the land, you were saying that because of that quota system, they got access to much.
I quoted this education because when you restrict them only till this matriculation, and
they're restricting the quota till matriculation.
Yes,
After that, it's their merit which takes them forward. which I think is very good.
But there it is not happening like that. What is happening is that because of the quota system was introduced, they were becoming more like they were taking it granted that if we have a quota system, then only we can be educated, and the economy was not up to the mark. Only the richer class was profitable, because this policy was made based on the caste, not on the economic status. So only the richer class of Bhumiputras were educated, so they were going, and the lower class had no economy, so they were staying in the matriculation level only. So both my points which I spoke in the first, the economy and the education, are both catering to the problem that the lower class of the same caste are still poorer, and the richer caste of the same caste are now getting more richer.
Thank you very much.
Now we'll move on to team 7, the person maintaining the idea.
Privatization, liberalization and globalization. What are they? These are the objectives of so-called economic policy. A very good morning to all of you, and I am here to speak for the motion. I have learned as much in the last years in any other period of my life, but with an added realization of how little over a half century the makers of economic policies have learned. New economic policy is a buzz all around. The cities today need socially equitable, economically viable, and the environmentally robust cities, which I really feel that the economic policy is a big failure. Our economic policy includes FDI and the creation of IT parks, under which there is no reservation for LIG and EWS. Is that what is called services for all? This creation of IT parks has given a boost to the vehicle ownership and creating concrete jungles and degrading environment badly, hence achieving the so-called need for having environmentally robust cities according to the makers. The budgetary deficit could not be brought down. The real income of the poor class has declined. Assistance to the poor has decreased. Dependence on foreign technology is on rise. As warned by P.B. Prabhanand, that premature shift would plunge the Indian economy into a whirlpool of severe economic crisis. Concluding my speech, I would say we have to change the economic policy, create confidence, foster investment, create public deficit. Thank you.
Now we would have the person challenging the idea.
Good morning, respected jury members, teachers, and my dear friends. I deem it a privilege to speak against the motion. The new economic policy framework kicked off a series of reforms which primarily involved opening up the economy to a globalized world. What did it lead to on a macro scale? Well, on an Indian context, from a nation of from 320 out of 360 million people living in poverty, from a country with 14% of world's population and 52% of the world's poor, from a nation not having enough money to import two additional months of requirements, to clocking the fastest economic growth rate mankind has ever experienced, one of the fastest decline in the poverty in the past decade, to having more foreign exchange reserves than the US and UK combined. That's what India has achieved due to the economic liberalization. The National Institute of Public Affairs report on sustainability says, I quote, with public becoming ever more aspirational, communal tensions have nosedived in regions that have experienced high growth rate. It is this aspiration that has pushed millions from the shambles of poverty to the stability of the middle class, which has resulted in higher tax base, and this higher tax base has resulted in government spending much more on programs like BSUP, RAY, which have led to reduction in poverty and increase in social equity. Friends, more than 300 million people have evolved into a middle class into the last decade. That's almost the entire population of United States. Globally, it is being revered. India is being revered, and their models are being revered, like poverty alleviation programs, BSUP, NREGA, and their case studies are being widely read on how to make our cities equitably sustainable. In the end, I would like to conclude by saying, by actually quoting the words of Mr. Amitabh Kundu, who was our chief guest. 21st century belongs to India. It belongs to Asia. Explore the report further, and it overwhelmingly says the seeds of Indian age were sown in 1991. Thank you.
I just want to ask the person who was speaking against the motion. Despite all these good things that you have mentioned in your, oration, tell me why there is a need of a new concept like inclusive growth. Had there been so much of goodness happening all around, I'm talking in the Indian context, not in Malaysian or Indonesian context. Why there is a new term of inclusive growth is being talked about? If the cities are socially equitable, economically viable, environmentally robust, so why do we need inclusive growth? It's all being addressed already.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the question. Inclusivity is anyways required because, to be very honest, India still has more than 30% of the population living in slums. A very small fraction of the population belongs to higher income category households. Matter of fact, the income inequality in India is fairly high related to the other developing countries. But that does not. So that's why we need equity in all aspects of special planning as well as all other aspects of planning. Now commenting on whether this trend of economic liberalization has been an enabler or has given a positive side to this attitude. Yes, it has given a positive side. So let me elaborate this by a very small example. So prior to this economic liberalization, it wasn't possible, say, for example, in this campus, if a technology is developed that solar panels can light up the entire campus, and a foreign technology partner has that technology available. So let an Indian partner with that. Let them set up a factory over there. The economy is being developed. The environmentally is being protected, and the jobs are being generated, creating an equitable environment for all. Matter of fact, when an industry is set up either in foreign collaboration or in Indian collaboration, everybody grows. From rich to the poor, every section of the society grows. So that's why equity is always required. But as to comment on whether it is an enabler of equity, yes, it has been an enabler of equity. That's what my point of argument was. Thank you.
Okay, I have been privileged to ask another question to the person speaking for the motion. So, can you just, in an age of terms like smart cities, green cities, sustainable cities, why are we discussing socially equitable, economically viable, environmentally robust? Are they different concepts? Are the same concept with different names?
Thank you, sir, for the question. The thing is, sir, the smart cities, according to me, what I feel, India is not fit for it. India is a country of cultural variations, where the smart city growth, according to me, would degrade our identity of having historical importance, cultural variations. So I personally feel
Excuse
that...
me, my question is not, I don't want you to define me smart cities. I'm saying we are discussing concepts of smart cities, green cities, sustainable cities. Is the definition of those concepts is different from what we are debating now?
Yeah, to a level, because these touch the grassroots points, according to me, like because the social crime or the social development or social upbringing of Indian people is more important, as we are just at the developing stage. And the other thing, which was environmentally robust cities, like in India, pollution is a great concern for us. So integrating those things into our planning is important, I feel. Thank you, sir.
Now to assert the motion, we have person from group 8.
No man thinks more highly than I do. To the abilities of very worthy gentlemen and ladies who have just addressed the House or who are going to address the House. But sir, ma'am, different man often sees the same subject in different lights. And therefore, I believe it would not be thought disrespectful of these ladies and gentlemen if entertaining as I do an opinion different to theirs. Good morning to one and all. I am speaking strictly for the motion. The question today is not whether NEP was a success or not. The question is how much of it was successful. NEP was basically bipartisan into two, namely stabilization measures which dealt with short-term crisis. Secondly, the structural reform measures to deal with long-term economical objectives, which is the subject matter of discussion for the House. And yes, I said long-term economical objectives and not social and those of environmental objectives. First of the three dimensions of a debate is social equity, that is creating equal opportunities for unequal. NEP has largely been created to revamp economic front during 1991 crisis, and the social equity factors were grossly neglected. Some of the many factors which were neglected are role of private players in imparting educations, resulted in widening gaps between haves and have-nots. Low employment generation in relation with emerging working class. Throughout the years after 1991, India had not enjoyed good economic viability, protracted fiscal deficit despite having aggressive economic-centric policy. One of the most neglected aspects today is the impact of industrial urban proliferation on environment. Creation of efficient green spaces and such ideas have not found spaces in policy. The most important fact which policy fails to understand is its implication in relation space of reference. Thank you.
I now call upon the person competing the topic.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to speak against the topic. Firstly, the new economic policy was established in the year 1985, and again it was revised in the year 1991. And its main aim is to reform the production pattern and also to obtain new technology. And also it gave much more importance to the privatization, which leads in the quality of the production and also the GDP, which again helped in urbanization and also the increase in the economy. And also, according to his 11th 5-year plan, there's 26% of decrease in the poverty. And also, recall the industries which are qualityless were also closed, which were harmful to the environment. And also, the net national product, which is a key factor for development, has been raised from 4.7 to 6.2%. And also the foreign investment were promoted, which gave much rise for the promotion of the investment from the foreign countries, etc. And also small-scale industries were set up, where most of them were provided employment. And also this liberalization was also important, and this also restricted restriction from the investment of the goods from all the foreign products. And that's it. Thank you.
My question to the speaker for the motion. Yeah, now for the motion. Do contradict me if you feel, but you mentioned in your opening lines that we are debating here to what extent the NEP is successful, not whether it is successful or not. Yes, but I do believe you're entirely neglecting the second part of the debate. We're not debating here whether the NEP is successful, but successful in very specific areas related to city development. And whatever you talked about were the macroeconomic indicators which are nationally, accepted, but I did not find too many points specifically related to sectors related to urban development. Could you enlighten us a little bit?
Ma'am, can you please precisely repeat the question?
Yes, we are not debating whether the new economic policy has been successful or not, or to what extent. We are debating how successful it has been in the aspects of urban development. And all the indicators you mentioned were of the general macroeconomy and not necessarily related to urban development. So can you enlighten us with some points related to urban development?
Ma'am, what I feel the macroeconomic indicators that I just mentioned in my speech, that were education, poverty, employment generation, and that of the food security, that I just missed out in my speech. Ma'am, basically, when policies are made regarding these subjects, ma'am, they automatically, consequently, indirectly relate to urban development. That's what I feel.
I think you stopped midway while you were giving your speech. Would you like to continue with your argument as to how the economic policies has helped to reach urban services to all? Would you like to elaborate upon it?
Yeah, overall, speaking about this, about the main pillars of the objectives, which are privatization, globalization, and the liberalization. Privatization, like it is mostly important because of that. Most of the development can be taken in fastly, rapidly. So, that's it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Moving on to team 9, we now have the person supporting the idea.
Good morning. Neoliberalization. The new economic policy, one of the major drawbacks of it was neoliberalization. It led to neoliberalization. Neoliberalization is the process of production of spatial